your growth happens when you're uncomfortable. Your comfort zone is called your comfort zone for a reason. And if you only stay there, then you're not growing as much as you can be.
We typically don't see the potential that lies inside of each one of us on a personal level. Welcome to the Unconventional Leadership Podcast, where we help you unlock your potential as a leader. Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the Unconventional Leadership Podcast. Today, we are back in the studio with Jordan Huizenga. Jordan joined us 15 episodes ago. And Jordan, I'm excited to have you back on.
Happy to be here, Mike. Yeah, thanks.
So it'll be exciting to do some recaps. We've had thousands and thousands of listeners. In fact, we just had one of our videos hit over 1,400 views and like 24 hours of it going live on our YouTube channel. So we appreciate all of you that are tuning in via YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and wherever you devour and listen to your podcast. So Jordan, part of our goal that Jordan and I had was that, hey, when we launch season 3, let's do some recap episodes. Let's, bring up some of the lessons learned. Let's talk about some of the things and major takeaways that our audience is it's resonating with our audience and that listeners are asking for more of. So I look forward to diving into some of this with you.
Yeah, I've got some great questions, or some questions at least of, kind of a lot of your reflections. You've had some great guests on. You've had some really amazing conversations with a lot of folks, and I'm looking forward to discussing around kind of your reflections and your thoughts as you continue to have these conversations with leaders from all different areas, right? I think that's one of the things that's been so valuable from like an observer's and a listener's seat is the diversity of content and the diversity of expertise that is coming to sit in these chairs is really valuable. So I look forward to the conversation.
Yeah, it's been really interesting, especially in now curating our next 15, right? Okay, so from what we've learned and from the conversations that are happening and from the dialogue that is happening with our listeners and the feedback and the information and the way that information gets to us, it's clear that change management is the constant, right? That navigating new or different is a constant, and that continues to come up with the conversations. It also, our number one value is that people matter, and it's important to us that our guests resonate with that value or have a really fun argument if they don't believe in it. Fortunately, all of our guests have, right? So trying to find the next 15 that have that same belief, that want to bring value and content and thought-provoking ideas and questions to those that tune in. And that part of that is what's going to drive the next 15. Like, what are these topics that people are asking? Okay, now how do we bring more value into those same dialogues and take different angles and even go after some new things that we haven't talked about at all yet that we feel will be helpful to bring further value to some of the conversations that have been taking place. So hope that makes sense, but that's one of the main takeaways for me as the part of the creative on this is like, all right, now, what do we take from that? Where do we go from here to keep bringing additional value?
So people matter, right? And people and leadership in and of itself is a purpose and a calling, and the impact that we can have as leaders in our organizations, in our communities, in our families can make such an impact. So people matter as a value. What are some of the other kind of observations and threads that have continued throughout the conversations for you that you've seen in the different conversations that you've had?
One is the amount of learning that happens in the difficult, right? So much of what how we formulate our beliefs, our attitudes, our perspectives comes from times of challenge, right? And that we need the right people in our camp when you're navigating through challenge. So you'll hear that in some of the conversations that we've had where like, I mean, even names were named
Hmm.
in some of these recent episodes of like during that time, this list of individuals, I couldn't have done it without them.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right. So that's one of the main
Mhm.
learnings. And I'd have to say, I've heard it a lot around mentors, teachers, educators, peers, colleagues, family members, and even previous episodes to the most recent 15. And it just resonates to me
Mm.
that how important our people really are to us,
Sure.
how important our community, the colleagues we work with, the friends that we stay in contact with.
Hmm.
That's really a big part of what life's about,
Mhm.
is not just what you're doing, but who you're doing it with.
Sure.
And how supportive we all need to be to each other, because we never know what people are going through.
Yeah, that's great.
Um,
I know as a leader, I think one of the most valuable things for like personal and professional development that I can help my team members understand is that your growth happens when you're uncomfortable,
100%.
and your growth happens when it's a little tough, when you're stepping outside of your comfort zone. Your comfort zone is called your comfort zone for a reason.
Right.
And if you only stay there, then you're not growing as much as you can be.
Right.
And so when we recognize amazing possibility and amazing opportunity and rising stars that can be great, to support them, helping them understand that some of the most valuable
Mm.
growth that they can have and experience and lean into is like maybe that thing that you're avoiding is actually what you need to be doing.
Yeah. The other part of that I have seen, and has come up in conversations, individuals who see your potential and individuals who see you, sometimes you're being asked by individuals to do something outside your comfort zone because they truly believe you can accomplish it.
Mm.
Or they've
Not
seen,
because they want to make you uncomfortable.
correct.
But it's like, I know what you can do. I can see and I can vision and I can dream and experience about like what I believe in you. And so it might be a little uncomfortable.
Yeah. And I think that's part of where we as individuals, as humans, have to recognize that we typically don't see the potential that lies inside of each one of us on a personal level.
Mm.
We see the potential that lies inside of others.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it takes someone seeing the potential in us and then helping us refine and strengthen and bring that up.
Yeah.
That is something I think that's a profound statement that, like,
Yeah.
most of the time you can think of when you ask someone on your team or someone in your family to do something or to take a role or to take a challenge on because you believed in them.
Mm.
They very rarely do we naturally believe in ourselves first.
Mhm.
I think that's an area we all need to improve upon.
Mm.
We all need to believe in ourselves even more and figure out our, statements of origin and
Mm.
things that we're navigating ourselves personally. We need to create more self-belief. But mentors and humans around us see that potential,
Well, and
right?
so you mentioned, the mentors and coaches and relationships as a kind of key thread that comes through these conversations. In your experience and at TMI and through these conversations, um, what do you see and how do you evaluate like good versus maybe less good, right? Like I think that's often a challenge because I do think that a lot of folks recognize and understand that coaches and mentors can be a very, very valuable asset. Just relationships, people who care about you, and there's a wide universe of you know um, really professional, really social, really maybe just casual kind of conversations that you have with different advisors. So how do you look at like what makes a good advisor, what makes a good coach, what
Mhm.
makes a good mentor, and how do you advise somebody on if they're looking for or if they're thinking about like, yeah, I need some more people or I need to be paying attention to the right people.
Yeah. Well, that's a great question. I'll share some thoughts
Mm,
around that, and I'd love to get yours as
mm,
well. Um, One of it is, it's certainly can this individual help me get to where I desire to go or where I've been encouraged to go? And what is it about their experience or their philosophies that will help me get there? So you need to value both of those. Do you think they can potentially get you there? And then basically why? Why do you think that? What is it about them and their relationship and their experience and their expertise that can help me navigate that? And how honest and truthful and transparent do I believe that coach or advisor is going to be? So that gets me to the second thought, actually, maybe the third, right? Because do you think they can get you there? Why do you think they can get you there? And do you have chemistry with them? Is there something about the conversations and the connection with them that you feel like it resonates and I would respond well to that chemistry fit and that chemistry alignment? So we always say, like, meeting multiple coaches, multiple advisors, multiple people sets a benchmark of, do they have the skill set, the experience, and do I connect with them? Like, am I going to be okay when they push back? Am I going to be okay when they call me out? Am I going to be okay when they say, I don't know if that's all you can do, and here's my next challenge? Am I going to trust them? Am I going to have innate belief that what they're saying is for my good and not just their opinion? So those would be three things.
Yeah, that's great.
That I would outline.
And in that last one, I would say in the connection piece, and maybe this is, for me personally, but I think I certainly connect with folks that like have the experience, have the lived experience, have the outcomes that I'm interested in. They've been there. They've got some wisdom to share. They've got some things that maybe I haven't seen, and I want to learn from them. And the people that I connect with the most are people who care about me as a person. And so the advisors, the coaches, the mentors, the just social connections that I really lean into, that I think all of us lean into, are those that care about us as a person, care about us individually. And I think there's really powerful leadership work in that too, to help people, like we were talking about a minute ago, help people achieve their greatest outcomes, what we often see in somebody else that they might not see in themselves, and really communicate that to them, lift them up to become that, or support them to become that, because we care about them as a person. Which also, and this is sometimes hard as a leader and as a manager, is that when we care about people as individuals, they might not want to be the CEO, to be the leader someday, and that's okay. That's really, really okay. And so sometimes when we see the opportunity and we see the possibility and we see, what somebody could be, and we want to support them in that, and we want them to have, we want to help them, grab the moon, but they might not want to.
Right.
And we as leaders need to be okay about that, because we care about them as people. And they might say, like, listen, that's just not for me. I get it. I think, if I kept my head down and if I, did all the stuff and continued on this path or on this growth, like, they even see like, I could do that, but they might just not want to.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah. And there's a balance here, because some of us may be doing things now that we didn't want to 20 years ago, but because someone stayed on us, we ended up starting to do it and figured out, I actually really like this. I actually really am falling in love with the work that I'm doing. Right. So there's this balance of that coach and mentor that knows when to push you outside your comfort zone and when to professionally not let up, right? Or personally not let up. And then when to say, you know what, you're probably right. That's probably not something that you need to consider, or because there is this balance of seeing the best in others, and what best we see in others may not be the best of what they want, right? So aligning to that and recognizing and respecting the fact that, that's not for me. I know you think I'd be good at that, but I have no interest in that. And we've had that in some recent stories. We've had some, recently we had an episode with Brian Bozeman where he was like, I didn't really see myself as a visionary. And now all of a sudden I'm visioning something that he's bringing to life. We've had conversations with Tyson Betts. Tyson shared some challenging career pathways, which was part of what we want to pull out in these discussions, because we know our audience, our listeners, you're experiencing things that we want to make sure that we're hitting on and we're drawing out these stories, right? But he was pushed and encouraged to do things that wasn't his natural tendency. And then someone said, I know it's time to set down this thought process and take this other angle. And then let's talk about to see how well that goes. So that was an example where he was sharing, he was trying to go at a problem in a situation directly. And the advice was, I know that work's coming out of your group. In order for you to have that work be listened to, you need to take it to someone else and have them deliver the message. Because you taking it directly, it's not going to be picked up. Right? So these lessons learned, these experiences. Now, who would ever in their natural tendency, when they're bringing something on the team they're leading, say, yeah, I'm good setting that down and letting somebody else take it and bring it to the end point. Right. So there was a learning there about, is that really the best approach?
Yeah, and a maturity.
And how frustrating that could be, and probably was and is, for anyone who's experiencing it. But sometimes we got to set our own pride down for the greater good of the business, the greater good of the team. And doesn't take away who created it. But at the end of the day, what we say is it's all about like the end game total success is more important than the individuals and the parts. Another component that I think in the reflection of the whole coaching relationship and mentor relationship is it takes time, right? And it takes seeds being planted. Just because one coach planted a seed doesn't mean that same coach is going to watch it germinate and watch it grow, right? And those mentors over time in our lives, they're all planting seeds. They're all providing guidance. The crop that comes from it is the culmination of all those seeds being planted, right? And one day will be harvested in full, but it takes time. So that's the other thing that I feel like has been touched on in occasion, but like it's not a race. This is definitely, the adage of it's definitely a marathon. This is not a sprint. And we don't even know sometimes the race that we're actually really running. We think we do, but we don't always know the journey that life has us on. We don't always know the path that God has us on of our own growth and development and realization of our time, talent, skills, and abilities. And, the good thing is, from a faith perspective, God has a plan. We don't know the plan.
Right.
And the plan is a lot messier than we all wish it would be.
Yeah. Right. Well, and I try and live by the mindset that, God leads us with a candle, not a flashlight. That God leads us and we are led and we are really shown just one or two, maybe three steps in front of us with the light of a candle, really not the light of a flashlight that's that's showing us our entire path. And that's intentional, because I think what we learn in a season of life will prepare us in ways we don't even recognize or comprehend or understand maybe until we get there, for a future adventure, for a future challenge, for a future reality that we can't even see because we really have a candle. We don't have a flashlight. And as people, we want a flashlight. You know what I mean?
You want to be able to turn on your brights and see.
I'm a planner.
Mile ahead.
I'm a type A planner, and I'm like, no, I want to know where I'm going, and I want to know how I'm getting there. And I think there is, I've found a lot of peace in imagining like and just living where my feet are, leading where my feet are, being present right now. And I've found an enormous
Mm.
amount of peace in that world, and in that work and in that mindset. um, you were you were talking a little bit about, um, I think the guests and the diversity of experience that you've had continues to be really really excellent. And I have this question about like seasonality for organizations and also for leaders, that somebody who discovers something about themselves, that might have cropped up from a seed that was planted 5 or 8 years ago. That person has grown and is in a different season of their life, or an organization that was led through challenge is now an organization that's in a different season, of its life cycle. And I'm curious about kind of your reflections over these conversations around how seasonality and how, again, so kind of like being where we are
Mhm.
in this season of like we're in a transformation or a turnaround situation at an organization, and like we just need to be in that turnaround right now. We want to be high performing, but right now like we're not there. So we need to be in this phase, and we need to be in this season right now because there's real work, there's important work, so we can all realize our full potential as people and as employees and as individuals.
So one of the hardest parts about podcasting is the moment you stop talking. I mean, think about it. The majority of the work that you probably put into creating a podcast is in the editing phase. So what if you didn't have to do the editing phase? Here at the Cincinnati Podcast Studio, we help you just come in and talk. We do all the rest. We have the cameras, we have the microphones, we have the lights, and then we have the editing tools to create the perfect content out of your podcast. Not only do you get the full podcast in video and audio, you also get short form content that you can use across all of your pages in social media. So if you want to learn more, go to CincinnatiPodcastStudio.com/tour to learn more and schedule your tour with us today.
What are your thoughts on kind of the seasonality and recognizing where you are as a means to get to where you want to be?
Yeah. Have a few different thoughts. One is, how do you still determine the success in the existing season you're in?
Mm,
Right? What does that look like? Is there a roadmap? Are there specifics that you can really say, okay, here's where we are, but in order to navigate this successfully, what are the objectives to get us in the current season we're in to what is the outcome? What is the desired outcome? How do I measure it? How do I align to it? How do I build people and communications and team around it? What does that look like in the season that we're in today? So there's an acceptance component, but there's also like, we believe innately people want change, challenge, and growth.
Mm.
So let's identify the challenge we're facing, the change necessary, and the growth that's going to come from it. What are the details to get us through this season? Whether it's 90 days, whether it's 3 years.
mhm.
And then how do I break that down into plans to get our team aligned to where we are and what we hope our outcomes are going to be the next week, the next 30 days, the next 90 days, et cetera.
Yeah, that's great.
So acknowledging the season and breaking it down, saying, here is where we are today.
Mhm.
Forget what we thought it would be,
Mhm.
right? Because none of us are doing today what we thought we were going to be doing 10 years ago.
Mhm.
And then set the vision for the future. What do we want the next season to be when we get there? How are we going to get there? What is it going to look like? What do we hope? So setting your sights on something that brings hope and excitement and energizing. And then as leaders, we have to take the season we're in today and design it in a way that does bring hope and energy to the dynamics that we're managing real time. Right.
Mhm.
So that would be some thoughts around
Mhm.
managing the season and how do you make that season as exciting and as aligned as possible?
Yeah, right.
And oh, by the way, we may or may not have the right skills on the team to manage this season.
Mm-hmm.
We may or might not have the skills ourselves like we thought we were prepared for, which means you got to constantly be building the right team, the right capabilities, the right skills, the right common language. And people may have to go into different roles during the season as well. That I know this is where you thought you would be, but I need to leverage this strength. So in order to leverage that strength, I need to put you in this, this cast in this role, if that makes sense.
And I think too that, so for organizations, and for leaders to kind of lead in that way during particular phases and seasons of an organization's life cycle, I think I would translate that also individually, that like, yes, you might not individually be in the season or be in the phase or be like doing the work that you thought you were going to be doing or that you would want to do or that you really feel called to or passionate about. But that doesn't mean that the work you're doing right now isn't critically important to get you to that place.
That's right.
I am so interested and I am so excited and passionate about like doing the work that I'm doing right now really, really well because I have the vision and the direction for where I'm going, and the work that I'm doing right now is going to prepare me for where I'm going. Even if I'm not at the end of my journey, even if I'm not exactly at the place right now, there might be hard work that I got to do right now that I'm not super excited about. But I often I get excited about that hard work that I didn't think I was going to be doing or I didn't think I needed to be doing, because I know that is going to prepare me even more for the place that I'm going as an individual. So I think that mindset can be a really, really valuable piece to say like, oh, well, I didn't think I was going to be, doing these one-on-one coaching plans for each of my employees. I was hoping they were going to be all high performers and we were going to be elevating high performers, and well, we're not there, and that's where I'd like to be, but I really need to dive in individually with each of my employees, with each of my team members, with each of my departments to ensure that, they're really doing the work and they're really improving their processes to move to a level where we're all high performing. You also mentioned direction. So you mentioned direction, like through the visioning of imagining kind of what is the future. And I think inspiring people towards that future is a really, really valuable asset for leaders. You mentioned alignment, and I think that clarity of aligning who's in which lane, who's responsible for what, aligning towards that direction is really critical. I think the other piece that is very important in that kind of, three-legged stool is commitment to that work, commitment to that direction, commitment around that alignment, right? So if we have direction, alignment, and commitment as an organization, as a team, like you can do an enormous amount of work. You can do an enormous amount of impact. And creating that commitment, I think, starts with like interpersonal relationships. I think building trust on a team is really critically important to be committed to each other. So like we're all committed to this direction, and we're all committed and aligned towards the vision that we have really told the entire organization. And let's get on the bus. Let's get in the boat and let's row together in the right direction, right? Like that's all those great metaphors.
Jordan, when you brought up, the hard work you're doing because of where you believe in your heart you're planning to go, or that you're on your journey to go, what work needs to be done there to really understand the personal purpose and how that relates to work and individual? What could you unpack there? Whether it's the learning that you are on personally that you've done, or the lessons learned from others that you're trying to mirror because you feel like they've done them well?
I think, I've done a little real estate stuff, and so I'll use the metaphor maybe of like building a house, right? Like I think if you've talked to anybody who's built a house, who's built gone through the construction process of a big rehab project of never mind a full like ground up construction, like
the one you're doing now,
like the one we're tackling right now, is almost none of that is fun. Almost none of that process of going through a big rehab project for your house, for a construction project, going through a new construction home, almost none of that is fun work. But you can imagine what the finished product of a new like open concept, kitchen, living, dining area that is the center of your family, that brings your family together, that can be a generational space, that creates and really communicates your values as a family unit to where like you can live those values. Or you're creating a new home for your growing family, like my wife and I are, to create this new home for our growing family that will be a center for us and our extended family and our community, to again like live our values in the most like palpable way possible. So we have that direction, right? We have that vision. And I think the things that you learn along the way, again, using this metaphor of a construction project or a home building project, the things that you learn along the way that are really valuable is you learn how things work. You learn how things are put together. You learn how things develop, how things grow. You even learn how to fix things, because I think that's one of the pieces that we don't recognize too often as leaders of our families, leaders in our community, leaders of our organizations, is that just because you did something once doesn't mean that like, oh, done with that. I'll never have to address HR policies again. I'll never have to address my roof again or my plumbing again, because right. But when you're going through the process of like a turnaround in an organization or a startup of a new product line or a new service line, that might not be where you want to be right now, but you've got a clear vision for what it's going to be in 2 years or 18 months or 3 years or 5 years. You've got that inspiring vision of what that product, service, that home that you're building. And you learned along the way how it's built. You also, you maybe like in our construction project, you maybe made some mistakes along the way, and you learn through those mistakes how not to do things so you don't make those mistakes on the next service that you start up, on the next building that you rehab. And so I think those lessons that you learn along the way, when you mess things up, are really valuable. When you make, a short-sighted decision, right? Penny wise and pound foolish kind of decisions. You learn those lessons when you make mistakes along that process, but you also learn how things are built and how things are put together. So in the future, if you need to address the roof or the policy or the plumbing system, or your onboarding system or your intake system, you remember what it was like when you built that. And so you can fix it faster.
Yeah.
So I think some of those lessons along the way that, again, like you might not, construction projects suck and there's nothing fun about them. But the lessons that you learn along the way can be really, really valuable in future experiences. And so that's been something that I think has been very, very informative for me. Like being where I am, right? Just having that mindset of be where you are right now and understand that where you are right now as a leader, as an employee, as a manager, as a community member, where you are right now has so much value to prepare you for whatever's in store for the future, for the future that you envision, but also the future that you can't even envision.
Thank you for unpacking that.
You talked about having that people want change. You mentioned that as kind of one of the key areas that I
Yep.
think you've learned and that you communicate. I think I love that, and I love that focus, because I think that like change and evolution is critical, really, for high performing organizations, for high performing leaders. Um, and change can be uncomfortable,
No
right?
doubt.
Like
Yep.
change can be hard. So how do you see good leaders, and through, the conversations you've had, how do you see good leaders really approach change when, like, an organization or a department isn't really on board or isn't really interested
Yeah.
in change?
Yeah. I mean, yes, I mentioned that change, challenge, and growth are three things that I believe humans are actually wired for.
Mm.
And that's based on my 25 years in this space and really the last 12 to 15 of getting really inquisitive to understand what's actually going on with all the humans we interact with and what's making individuals successful in life and in their profession, what's making teams successful in life and their professions, and what's making leaders who are guiding some of these conversations successful, and then what makes leaders become leaders. Like, what's the difference between those who want to lead and those who don't want to lead? What's the difference between good managers and phenomenal ones?
Mm.
What's the difference in good mentors and great mentors? What's the difference in people that you kind of want to forget about
Mhm.
and those you never want to forget about? And when it comes to change, one of the things that's very clear is when change is happening to you, you're a lot less interested in that.
Mm.
When change is happening for you and with you, you're interested,
Mhm.
right? So how do leaders, teams, communities, how do we communicate in a way that shares a vision of why this is really important and why we're going through it and what the desired outcomes and differences look like? When you understand what's happening, you're a lot more energized for what's about to take place and where the journey you're going to have to be on in order to get there. So the communication about where we're going and how we're going to get there is critical. Many years ago, I wrote an article about private equity and the fear that would happen in some environments where private equity was getting ready to buy or had bought an organization versus the excitement of when private equity had bought an organization. And the biggest difference was communications, right? If you're quiet about everything and you're forcing, I don't know, just to bring it to life, like if you're aware of what's going to be coming at you and why it's good for us, you're a lot more engaged about accepting what's coming at us, right? So if a ownership change, if a company is selling and a company is going to a next generation, if things seem like I have no idea what's happening, what do you do then? You fight for your family. You fight for yourself, right? So all of a sudden, everybody's in a state of self-preservation mode because the only thing I know is that my outcome, my team, my family, my life is really important to me. So everybody's on edge and everybody's in like protective mode. Versus if I start communicating why this is going to help us, why the merger is going to be a value, why the new ownership is going to help us reach our potential, why the differences that are about to come your way are going to be good for us and are going to put you and everyone on our team in a better place. Now I go, oh, that makes perfect sense, right? That's actually really exciting. And I want to help it facilitate it versus I want to fight it and I want to put my feet in heels in the sand and I don't want to move, right? Because I'm fearful. So communications is king, queen, prince, and princess,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like we have to communicate clearly, as open and transparent as we can, is what I wrote in that one article. There are certain things going on in leadership that everyone isn't even allowed to be aware of, right? But I got to give them enough. And you know what? If you're in the room where you're sitting in the non-disclosure, you need to be able to say, yes, but we need to also frame the story in a way that's able to give our employees enough to understand where we're about to go. I want to encourage you to reach out to us via LinkedIn. If you don't follow myself or our organization, Talent Magnet Institute, I encourage you to click follow, send me a LinkedIn invitation. Let's connect and take conversations to a next level. So there's a balance there. There's some things that you're not able to share. There's some things you are able to share. I have the opportunity. You have the opportunity. You're at the leadership seat, right? I'm in a scenario where I get brought into conversations that no one outside this room is aware of. Okay, great. But the people outside the room are really important to helping us get there, right? So now what can we share? When can we share it? What does it look like? And just how important communications is, right? I mean, there's been times where we're sitting with groups, even on the same leadership team, individuals that are representing groups, that are representing functions, and we start bringing up conversation and dialogue to build this team towards a greater future. And they go, you know what? I had no idea that's why we did that. I had no idea that's why your feet are so stuck in the sand, because we never answered that question for you, right? And, you know, I was with one team recently that they had acquired over 5, 6, 7, 10 years, several different organizations, and had never even gotten the same room together as disparate leadership teams. And like everyone's still on their own team. They're not even, you're not working as one team.
Yeah, right.
And you've acquired 6, 7 organizations. And you're like, do you realize the difficulty you're creating for yourself by not getting these players in the same room talking about why we are together and what we are going to do to accomplish our future?
Right.
Like break down your own, your greatest competitor is yourself, right? So those are just various things that come to mind when you ask that question. That, you know, at the end of the day, I do believe people enjoy change. I don't think anybody wants to be sitting in the same spot they are today 7 years from now,
Right.
7 months from now,
Right.
7 days from now, right? And therefore, we all want to experience change, challenge, and growth. We just want it to be done. We want to be a part of it, not have it done to us. If that makes sense.
I love that. No, that's great. I heard this, or was reminded by our CEO at Beach Acres, this great quote of that's I guess a Disney quote around how they operate their organization, that says that true excellence is really found at the confluence of people, process, and place, right? So Disney, and has a wonderful place-based experience. But that's not the only, like, the place, the actual thing of, like, Disney theme parks isn't the only thing that they're focused on, right? They're actually working to achieve excellence where people and process really support that place as well. And I'm curious about your thoughts in like an order of operations kind of mindset of, in organizational development, in personal development, in leadership development, recognizing that 3 of the most critical things we can focus on are our people, our processes, and the place in which we provide services, products, right? And experiences with our customers and with each other. That's an enormous amount, right? Like, that's the universe. So as a leadership team, or as a leader, where do you think you start to address and to improve some of those factors?
I think there's a lot of frustration that comes from the challenges that exist between people and process. And again, I think it's in many cases, it's because they're not communicated, right? So we can set vision statements, we can set goals that don't have measurement and metrics against it. There's a reason why people say that using SMART goals is critical, right? Because specific and measurable matters. And the more specific and measurable you as a leader, if you're managing me, the more specific and measurable you can help me understand my role and what good or great looks like, the more I can strive to achieve it, the more I can grow towards it, right? If you keep me in a, everything's vision statements and quotes, but what's measurable here? What does success look like? I thought I had a great week. I thought we just had a great quarter, and now we're saying we didn't. Well, it's because probably they're missing measurements to hold people accountable to, and it's much more leading from emotion than leading from specific. I do think leading from specifics is really important. Leading from emotion all the time is exhausting. And getting specific and measurable and allows people to take action and create results, right? And then, what are the timelines on it? So that's the SMART goal process. Great. And I think I've learned there's a real benefit of creating SMART goals. I see a lot of statements that create frustration between people and process. I think place matters. I think the culture matters more. And especially in a world where not every company is hybrid, not every company has remote. Some people have one place where everybody comes every day, but we work with all of the above, right? And culture and communications and clarity and goals and vision and being specific about where we're going matters even more than the physical place, because it almost creates a world. Again, place does create an impact, but you even said it, that Disney, yes, they have places you can go, but they're trying to create cultural transformation for other reasons. And therefore they've had to acquire assets and brands and things that, over the years that have created an incredible enterprise. But it's not just the location as much as it is the culture, right? People
how do you feel, right? Like place matters because it's critical for an employee, for a customer, for a vendor. Like, we want, when they walk into an office or when they walk into a theme park, like, the company, the organization wants them to feel something particular. And so how the culture of that place is felt,
that's right,
I think is really, really powerful.
Yeah. Years ago, I went to a Disney customer service training. I believe it was hosted either by, I want to say either Xavier or Cincinnati State. And I remember signing up for it. And the point you're making is, when I showed up to that customer service training in Cincinnati, Ohio, I felt like I was a part of the Disney team, right? You felt like you were a part of the cast. They can create culture and place anywhere they go. Right. Certain brands can just do that, right? Anybody who's ever gone through like Ritz-Carlton customer service training or relationship building, no matter where they attended the experience, they were like, that was incredible. That's what excellence looks like. So I think we all have to be mindful of it, including if you have a physical place, what does this align to the culture and mission that we're on, right? So we've been in organizations where they've said, like, where we've even said, like, what we just experienced walking through your physical location does not define the values and the culture you just stated you're trying to create.
Yeah, right.
And there can be disconnect from that. The other thing that recently has come up in a couple conversations is that culture is not the vision and values that we talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Culture is about the vision and values that is actually felt and lived out. And that's another really important component, right? That if you're expecting something and you show up and experience different, you don't say, yeah, but I'm going to define it by what I was expecting.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to define it by what you experienced.
Mm-hmm.
So organizations, this is why employee sentiment and feedback and voice matters.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, none of us are here in leadership roles. I hope not.
Mm-hmm.
I hope none of us are here in leadership roles to think that just what we say is how everybody should behave. Because at the end of the day, our behaviors, what I do, how I make you feel, the trust I build is really what impacts the world around us. It's not what I say.
Yeah.
It's how I follow up. It's how I show up. It's how I respond. It's how I make you feel that makes you say, this is the kind of team I want to be on.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then I got to back it up with behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to back it up with specific, measurable, actionable
Mm-hmm.
results and time bound. Like, what are my expectations? And those two things have to be connected. You can't just inspire and lack result, because
Mm-hmm.
then somebody's going to say, yeah, we were all talk, we're no result. Right?
Well, and that's even worse.
It's
right.
even worse.
If that can so quickly undercut and really degrade, the culture that you're trying to build when your actions don't back up your words.
Right. And there's times where actions surprise them. Like, there's times where I've been in and interacted with leaders and organizations and teams where it's like, our results are hitting the mark. The comments we hear about our values from leadership is different than the results, than the comments and values and specifics that come out of our function or our domicile, our
Mm-hmm.
location.
Mm-hmm.
And what this means is there are organizations, there are cultures inside cultures.
Mm-hmm.
There are things that are getting defined by the executive offices. That's
Mm-hmm.
not the way we operate in this plant.
Mm-hmm.
And we've learned that this plant is actually getting results. So there's this whole, like you were mentioning, that disconnect sometimes
Mm-hmm.
between people, process, and place. Some of the disconnect is the people and the processes to operate this one place looks different. And, what you're saying actually doesn't help us get to where we want to go. So we've learned as a culture, there's cultures inside cultures. As a business unit, we have to function this way. And as a leader who's leading and guiding this business unit, or as a leadership team that's guiding this business unit, we appreciate sometimes what you tell us, but we're living out the way we know we have to believe in order to accomplish these goals, right? So it's not all roses and butterflies.
Mm-hmm.
And how we show up in those moments to navigate results and impact really matter. So the people, process, and place can be determined by even business units, divisions, functions. Greatness happens when they all align, right? Where if I have a corporate office or a corporate function or a leadership team saying one thing, but it's unrelatable to what we're actually living out, that's a gap, right? So if you remember years ago, the show, I don't even know if it's still on today, sorry in advance, Undercover Boss, but the reason why they sent people undercover is like, what's actually happening here, right? I always loved the episodes where it wasn't like tragedy, where it was like, that's awesome, right? Where they found this one or two individuals in this place that were like, he or she is actually demonstrating everything we want in this organization.
Yeah.
And then they would like tell an amazing success story where they, had this one supervisor who was running this facility that was carrying the weight of the world on her back. And then the organization recognized it, probably because now they're on TV. So they got to do something about it. And thank goodness, right? Because what would they have done if they weren't in the public spotlight? And they like said, hey, we're going to help you go back and get your degree. We're going to make you a director now. We're going to promote you and change the trajectory of your family because of the impact you're having on this environment and on our customers and on our team. I always love those episodes, those inspiring stories.
Yeah.
Then you want to become sick when the culture is the opposite, that they find out like this person is just wreaking havoc on the environment. And, again, I say like kind of shame on us if it takes that level of research to know what's actually going on here. But how do we as leaders stay in tune, right? How do we stay in tune? If I have a organization that has plants, 11 different plants across North America or the world, how do I make sure I stay in tune? If I have a hybrid team, how do I make sure I stay in tune? If I have, I'm on the executive leadership team, but I don't understand the functional, I don't actually know what's going on in the functions of my business, shame on me, right? So back to the people need to stay informed and stay close and those are the teams that win, right? Where doesn't mean they get involved because they're so close, they start micromanaging or start rolling up their own sleeves. Sometimes leaders have to roll up their sleeves and be willing to, but like, I at least need to stay in tune so I can support the people who are executing the plan.
What do you find? So in your experience and in your discussions, what do you find are some of the most like valuable strategies and tactics for leaders to do that, for executive leaderships, right? Like, should the CEO be in each of those 11 plants every quarter, right? Like, is it FaceTime, an actual like physical presence? Is it, the goals that we're setting, right? Like there's a lot of different things that I'm sure leaders can do to try and stay updated. What have you seen as kind of some of the most valuable things that leaders can do to stay connected?
So the characteristic, I think, is like creating the culture of authenticity. So being authentic and not just showing up once a quarter, but making sure not just I am, but my team is, right? So like we need to create presence. We need to create open and authentic dialogues where I can get real feedback, not what I want to hear, but what I need to hear. Some leaders don't want to hear what they need to hear, right? So again, the great organizations create accountability, set up systems, people, and process in place to function and operate, and then have mechanisms to hear what's really going on and care enough to understand what they're measuring and what they're looking at, not just output, but how things are taking place. So the best leaders I've ever been around, some of them we just, had on the most recent 15, some of them we had on the most recent 220, are really authentic in their desire to care for the culture and the people that are around them, right? We're trying to spotlight the unconventional, right? Which again, my dream is one day the unconventional becomes conventional. But until then, we're going to keep bringing it up. Like these are the authentic leaders who can pick up on the emotion, not just the result. So that would be, something also that's important. There are a lot of people who don't care about the emotion. In fact, you were mentioning earlier, Jordan, about coaches who care about the people they're coaching. There are a lot of coaches who don't care about the people they're coaching, right? Not all.
Yeah.
We work with some amazing coaches. One of the values I always kind of put like an asterisk, our coaches at Talent Magnet and the coaches that partner with Centennial and support our clients, I want coaches who care more about people than what they're coaching. I want facilitators who care more about the team in the room than the content they walked in the room with, right? So some of the leaders, many of the leaders that we've talked about, they care about outcomes, but they really care about the people who are driving the outcomes. And therefore they rest a lot of their energy and attention to the experiences of the people, because they know the more I can help these people thrive and build and care about one another and care about each other and care about self, the better the outcomes, right? So that's kind of an overarching theme of what unconventional leadership looks like.
Love that.
You know, if you care about the people, really care about the people, the outcomes will happen. Now, I'm going to go in two different angles here. Sometimes caring about the people means helping an individual get off the bus, right? I need to slow down. I need to stop. I need to be able to open the door. I need to be able to share. Here's why, but it's time for us to make a transition, right? So complacency is not what I'm talking about. Lack of accountability is not what I'm talking about. Lack of identification of when someone has reached their limit and capacity to help us go, or when the individual just is not right for this team and we're not right for you either, right? Here's the tension probably going on in your life because we're not right for each other. So building up the team with a group of people who have the right skills, capabilities, who want to go through the change, challenge, and growth that you're about to take them through is crucially important in this world.
Well, it's great. I'm so excited about these last 15 episodes. Can't wait for the next 15. Mike, thanks for having me on again.
You're welcome, Jordan. And thank you for being a part of this journey. I do encourage you to give us your feedback. Tell us the topics, the challenges, the change you're going through that we can help you with in your own personal journey, with your team's journey. This is what we do, right? We want to be alongside of leaders, of listeners of our community, and help you and your teams and organizations thrive, help you learn what being an unconventional leader really looks like, help you and your team unlock your fullest potential. And we look forward to the next episode. I want to thank the Cincinnati Podcast Studio for all they do each and every week. I want to encourage you to check out past episodes that you might have missed. I want to encourage you to share an episode with a friend and colleague that you believe will resonate with the real topic and real challenge that you're facing together. Use us as a tool to help you advance in your leadership and help make this world a better place. So thank you for joining us. I'll see you next week on the Unconventional Leadership Podcast.